get that one there.
Yeah, I got that one.
All right, it's 5:45. I don't know if this is on. Is this on? Okay, it's 5:45. We'll call this work session to order. First item is interviews for the Mental Health Board. We have Miss Laura English. Hello, Miss English. How are you?
Well,
Awesome.
actually, that's not Laura. I was saying, I don't know if that's even working.
We just put that table up there.
We did have we did decide not to use the handheld mic. We had talked about having to use the mic just for the live feed, but I think we're fine.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we've got a few questions for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you may have some follow-up questions from them, and you may have some questions for us.
Sure.
And then we'll be done. So, first question is, what are your reasons for wanting to serve on the Mental Health Center Board of Directors?
And if y'all have my little application paper, I did write that on there.
Okay.
I have been in Hartselle since I was 5 years old. I went to kindergarten to Preston. My husband and I decided to stay here, and raise our children. We love this community. I have deep ties to the mental health care system in this community. My dad, I want to get emotional. My dad was, the reason we live in Hartselle, my dad was a psychiatrist. And we moved to Hartselle. He worked at Hartselle Hospital, and he had his outpatient practice here as well. And after he passed, and I did my little life reevaluation, I wanted to go into mental health care. That's what I had known. That's what I loved. And I wanted to continue that journey towards improving my community in that way. So that's what I'm hoping to have, just yet another avenue into that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Great. Do you understand that the Mental Health Board serves in an advisory capacity and is not involved in day-to-day operation of the center?
Yes.
Okay. Number 3 is why is serving on the board important to you, but I think we kind of went over that unless you've got something to add to that question.
No, like I said, I really do care about this community. I care about Hartselle and Morgan County. And I care about mental health deeply. I mean, that's my chosen career. And,
well, number 4 seems like a question that may not pertain to our applicant as well, but you may can give us some more insight on your experiences. Do you have real-life personal experience with mental illness with adults or children?
I do. I'm currently the nurse educator at Decatur Morgan West, which, as y'all know, is our mental health hospital. Mm-hmm. I've been there since January of 2018, so I'm closing in. Finished out my 7th year there.
Awesome.
Went there straight out of nursing school because, again, I knew that's where I wanted to be. So, we serve children, adolescents, and adults, and we used to also serve the geriatric population as well. So I've treated patients across the lifespan.
Yeah. That's probably a pretty thankless job, so thank you. It may not be. There may be people that say thank you every day, but I would
usually I get, wow, why?
Yeah. I understand. Number 5, what strengths do you believe you have that can help leadership accomplish goals of serving the community?
I have, real life experiences with this population. Granted, that's in an inpatient or acute care capacity rather than a community care capacity, but I do, spend lots of time talking to these patients and talking to their families and, hearing about their needs and their wants with their mental health care. Personally, I feel like I have some, good leadership qualities. I am not afraid to tackle challenges. I'm very flexible with problem solving, things like that. And I've, like I said, I've just kind of got that real life experience of knowing how to talk to people that are actually being served by these places.
Absolutely. Good deal. Do you serve on any boards that conflict or compete with similar services?
I do not.
Do you feel like you can attend most meetings at noon on the 3rd Thursday of the month?
I do.
Okay. Last question is, tell us why we should pick you over the other candidates for this board.
I've got real life experience and I've got the passion. I've never served on a board before. This is a new thing, but I'm a quick learner. And this is a place I would like my career to go to, is towards, my community. I love my hospital and I don't intend on leaving it, but I can't express enough how much I do want to serve my town, serve my county.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Anybody else have any follow-up questions or anything I'd like to ask?
I think I just have one, but I'm just curious about how you feel like you've seen how you've seen mental health impact the community of Hartselle.
Right now, I think we're seeing a lot of issues within the schools with our teenagers, with our young children. Their services in the area are so lacking. We are our only inpatient mental health for children and adolescents under the age of 12 between Nashville and Birmingham. Wow. By us. Wow. And we stay full. Yeah. The demands put on children and teenagers in today's time are just unreal, between school and extracurriculars and academic performance and social media and their social expectations. I grew up in the 90s. We didn't have Facebook. Gosh, I know, right? I told my daughter she doesn't get to look at a computer screen until she's 15. But and so it starts so early. Empowering children to develop good relationships with their parents, healthy relationships with their peers, being able to reach out to adults in the community, whether that's school counselors. We've got the Nova Center that comes and sees in the city schools, or teachers, trusted teachers. So I think the question was, how have I seen it? I have seen it. Everything from depressed and suicidal teenagers to just totally out of control kids because of the demands put on their time.
Sounds like your passion is more the younger population.
Well, that's the majority of what we treat, so that's what my time is spent a lot with. Like I said, we do treat adults. We have a smaller adult facility here at West, but a lot of our patients are court ordered to be there as well.
All right. Anybody else?
What expectations they've selected do you have for your time on the board? Are there programs that you'd like to get into or pursue?
Yeah, initially I want to learn. I want to learn about what's out there. Like I said, my scope is limited to inpatient acute care. I would love to see really what is going on in the community to advocate for mental health. I'd like to see community outreach and participate in that. So I think my initial answer is to learn what's out there and see where any cracks could be filled.
The reason I ask is I work at the sheriff's office, and we would love for people to have somewhere to go besides us.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a lovely sheriff's deputy this morning. I let in the door, picking up the patient. So they have good relationships with y'all.
That's good.
Good. Thank you for your time.
All right.
Good seeing you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Laura.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Very
now,
brave.
Rita is not in here. They used to mail letters. I don't know if you're going to call.
We'll make sure that usually usually it'll be probably a call or a letter.
Yeah,
I'll make sure.
We'll try not to be Amish and send a letter.
That's right. I do check my email.
Thank you guys so much.
You have a good one.
Thank you.
Which one do you I said who's going to give Miss Haynes money?
I think Rita's out there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Never mind.
That's what's for Rita.
So I guess you got my email that Mr. Williams is not going to be able to make it. I think the next one's coming in the door.
Okay.
I know she was here. I saw her in the parking lot.
Rita, we had a quick question for the applicants. How are they notified of the decision?
I will send a letter.
Okay.
We'll send a letter. Okay.
Can we send
Or I
an
guess
email?
we'll email now.
Okay, that'd be great.
Signed by
Horse and buggy.
Yeah.
Smoke signals.
Yeah.
Three signals you're in too.
Hey, Miss Teresa.
Hello. Hi. Hi.
That's my favorite dog owner.
She's getting better.
Oh, good.
I'm Teresa Haynes. We haven't met.
No.
Don't know you. I know you. And I know you, all your family.
Watch out now.
My turn.
No, man. Miss Haynes, you had a good day?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and then if anybody has any follow-up questions, they'll ask you, and then if you have any questions for us, we'll answer those. How about that? All right. So what are your reasons for wanting to serve on the Mental Health Center Board of Directors?
Well, my mother has come down with dementia, which is a close thing to me. And on the United Way board, we have mental health affiliates that we help raise money for over the year. So I remember the things we went through to help them. Mm-hmm. And it's just something that's close to me.
Do you understand that the Mental Health Board serves in an advisory capacity and is not involved in day-to-day operation of the center? Okay. Why is serving on the board important to you? You may have answered that, but
Now that I'm retired and I only work part-time, it's kind of like it makes you feel good when you're doing good to help somebody that can't help themselves.
yes, ma'am. Do you have a real-life personal experience with mental illness with adults or children? And it can be a friend, a family member, a neighbor.
My mom, like I said, has got dementia, and she's in a nursing home now. And that's like a battle every day. And my dad knew he had a touch of it, but his heart got him. So, but yeah, my mom, yeah.
What strengths do you believe you have that can help leadership accomplish goals of serving in their community?
Like, I don't know this board exactly what they do, but none of y'all knew exactly what you're going to be doing when you got on this.
Exactly right.
But, like, when I was on the United Way, it was raising money. So I was General Electric's representative on the board of directors, and I had it for 6 years. And when I had it, we raised more money, than anybody before that. But it's, you got to figure out what you got in front of you, what you got to do, and go with it.
Fill it in. Do you serve on any boards that conflict or compete with similar services?
I'm not on anything now.
Okay. Do you feel like you can attend most meetings at noon on the third Thursday of the month? And tell us why we should pick you over the other candidates for this board.
Well, United Way wasn't the only board I was on. I was on the Red Cross for a while, and then I was on, there's a Morgan County Humane Society out east of Hartselle. I was on their board. And I forgot this one, but I was on one that, I forgot the name of it, but they partnered with the recipients for Meals on Wheels. And they also, they raised money and got places to donate dog food for the recipients of Meals on Wheels, because those people are, they're just barely making ends meet. And we raised, and I had a drive out at GE, and we got a ton of dog food to take. So, but I forgot to put that one on my resume, but I couldn't think of the name of it.
I had that problem.
Like you said.
Does anybody else have any questions for Ms. Haynes?
If selected, just kind of, do you have an expectation of what you'd like to see on the board, or any programs to pursue or things to look into? I know you mentioned dementia with your mom.
I think that mental health is one of the least helped things, even with the United Way. I think that was one of the least helped agencies that they had. It just needs more help.
Services.
Services, yeah.
I'll ask the question too. How do you see here in Hartselle that mental health has impacted our community?
I work for a lawyer. I see it every day.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if you would call the drug problem a mental health thing or not, but it's. I hate to say this, but it's like mine. Your age people just don't act like they do.
She was one of you.
I mean, they just don't. I mean, it's mind-boggling. I mean, it's. I mean, I do anything. Like I said, I'm retired now. I have more time. Miss Miller and Miss Harris would let me off to do whatever I had to do when I had to do it anyway. And I would like to serve on that board because the mental health issues with my mom is near and dear to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Miss Teresa, you got any questions for us?
No, I mean, if I got it, it would be like the first new one that I started out on, and you have to learn what their goals are, and you know.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being interested and courageous enough to come and sit in this position.
You're welcome. Nice to meet y'all, y'all.
Thank
See
you.
Alan,
Oh, Lord.
thank you for me keeping you on the phone forever last night. I had somebody prowling at my mom's house. Oh, golly.
Good seeing you.
Mental health.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
My neighbors.
All right. Moving on, discussion of the welcome signs proposal.
Okay. I'm sorry. So, I believe you all saw the proposal that came from Genesis Construction, and the staff, meaning Ben and Jeremy and Rita and I, conferred on this yesterday and tried to make sure we fully understood it. I'm going to let Jeremy speak about. Jeremy, this is one packet.
Yes, there's 3 different packets, so just grab one.
Take the top one and then that's fine. Okay. We'll take the top one. So Jeremy's going to speak to some of the placement, not concerns, just things we need to decide on. But in general, what you saw in the proposal from Genesis is the $8,448 would be per sign, and that would be for short here. That would be for 3 modified signs and the Thompson Road sign. And he said the price for Thompson Road and the modifications that would need to be made to the other ones is basically the same because the foundation for the other ones would remain. So it would not be, he said he could do basically 4 signs, the 3 that are currently there, plus 1 more at Thompson Road for the basically 8,500 piece. Then we discussed the downtown signs. There would be 2 of those signs, one on either end of downtown, and he said that he would be able to do those for less because we would stick with our original size. So those would be about 6,500 a piece. And then you saw the other quote for the big sign, which is roughly 40,000. So with the carryover that we had from last year, plus the 30,000, we had 30,000 carried over from the budget last year. We have 30,000 that Scott has already pledged when he came and redirected some funding. And I reached out to him because that leaves us with a deficit of $27,000. And I reached out to him, and he said that he would be willing to kind of meet us halfway if we could help with that. So the request, in order to complete the project with exactly as we would desire, we would need an additional $13,500 from the council. And then Jeremy will talk about the placement.
Yep, so the big sign at the interstate exit, Highway 36 East, it's this map that has the blue lines on the front page. Current location of that older sign there is between the service station and Huddle House, but it is technically within state right-of-way. As you'll see there's a 200-foot wide right-of-way, which is really unusually wide as you get closer to the interstate exit. That sign has been there for ages and ages, but since this was going to be significantly larger than the old one, we do think we probably need to get, without DOT, have them formally approve that. So that's something to keep in mind there, that could be a factor. It's well off the highway, but it is in the right-of-way. So we'll need to have a conversation with them on that. The second page on that little packet is an alternate location that's on city-owned property. This is less desirable because it does come into play for the commercial development that we have planned there along the frontage near Shore Road. But if worse came to worse and we needed a place to put it, that corner, that westernmost corner there, has a decent elevation that would be visible. That green line is just kind of showing a sideline distance around that utility pole, which might move at some point anyway, but that's an alternative spot if we had to go that route. Anything you do like that is it has the potential to impact parking lot layouts and things like that if something comes in, so it's not ideal, but it's another spot.
You can't go under the power line.
You could do it under the power line there. I think TVA would be okay with that. The lay of the land's not as good there. It kind of dips off into a little bit of a bowl.
I wonder if there's any way we could slightly elevate it.
Right. Yeah.
Because, I mean, honestly, that wouldn't, because I would doubt that we're going to build any commercial development under that power line.
You can't build a building under it. Now, somebody could use it as an entrance offshore and have parking there, so that could still come into play.
Yeah.
But either corner.
I mean, they could, if we did it just right off the right of way.
He's pointing to this area right here. This, right here in this.
Where the
corner
big transmission line is.
It does put it off the road a little bit more, but the original one was off the road significantly too.
Yeah.
And that may not even come into play. Mm-hmm. Out may say, fine, whatever, the never ages, no problem with it. But since it's bigger, that's a question mark. There are a couple of others that are long-standing that are in right-of-way. The one 31 South is in the right-of-way. Thompson Road is right at the edge, but in right-of-way, and even the one out 36 West may straddle. It's looking hard to tell on my maps with the tree cover, but so it's not long. It's not the only one,
but none of them are as big.
What's that?
None of them are this big.
None of them are that big. That's right.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
All right. And then downtown, if you'll take a look at the other one that's got the green line on the front of the side line. This would be the eastern end near tracks. That little spot right there has some landscaping in it currently, so there will have to be some reworking of landscaping. Possibly that evergreen tree that's there will need to be removed. To see around the signals for the tracks and the end of that fence from the stop bar kind of approaching downtown, that just kind of shows you where that orientation would be. And that's pretty much the only place we can put that one where it's going to be visible. Second page on that map shows the existing location on the other end, this end, west end, and just go back in the same spot on the property we acquired from Housing Authority at that gazebo.
Any plans for that property or ideas for that property?
There really hasn't been. It was available as part of the package that came with the parking lot and other odd places around town. So
This when we acquired this land. I think that there was, at least the previous council, I think there was a willingness to consider even selling it if there was someone that wanted to develop there, correct? I don't want to speak for y'all. Was there?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
there are some floodplain considerations there
Okay.
that limit it pretty badly. And the size is fairly small too. So
Not the mystic gazebo that's there. I don't know how you go by without it.
yeah, it's a landmark for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then on 31 North, the third.
Can we go back to those two real quick?
Sure, yeah.
I don't know. We're putting them out east and west already. Are these going to say welcome to downtown Hartselle, or are they just going to say welcome to Hartselle
The
again?
thought was that we would brand these with more of the downtown branding, and so these would designate, they'd be smaller and designate.
And one issue, I think we spoke at one point, one of the issues about downtown, you have all the people that come from all over, but there's really, like most cities you go to, there's a photo spot or a iconic landmark or an image or somewhere where you capture the trip. There's not.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Mike, because I sure would like to have a couple of arches.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, well, we can forego this and look at it.
And turn it into an art.
Forgoing these signs means that we don't, and we can stay within budget. With the additional.
I would rather explore next year.
Say again?
That's 13,000 or so out. I think you
Okay, with the two, yeah. And then we can look into somehow arches. I think the only concern with arches is that we do have 18-wheelers.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
That's how we get out there. That's how we get out there.
Yeah, you ready? Can we do it? Yeah.
Somebody's going to have to replace the bridge first.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other one, the other package is 31 North. Front page shows the approximate current location of the sign that's there in front of the carrying place. So of course, you can enlarge that one there as we have it designed now, or have it laid out now, I should say.
That says 12 foot, so it's not going to be as big as the one coming off the interstate.
No, not as bigger than the one that's there now, but not as big as the one on the interstate. 2 feet, isn't it? Wider and
2 feet
taller.
wider, 2 feet taller.
So not
The
really.
reason that one in that empty lot, it just, a lot dwarfs it.
And there are some other signs that just kind of hide it a little bit, on each end. That would be less of a problem, not a problem, on the second page. And we have not contacted this property owner yet. I don't know if they would be interested. I know they bought a lot of property in that area and removed some houses. This tract was not a consideration prior because it had an older house there. But there is a knoll there that's out of the right of way, and you can see the little Google Street View inset there on the map. It kind of shows it. It's pretty much perfect for it as far as visibility goes. If you wanted to look into a relocation, that might be a spot to consider. And then the third one is just showing existing sign location. That's 31 in Sparkman. That one, even though it's on the other side of the highway, it is a good spot because you're coming around a curve there, and you kind of face it as you make that curve. We're going to have to move that one because of the intersection improvements there, so it can't go back in the exact spot. But out of the right of way on that private property before it drops off into the low spot, there is potential to put it there where that red line shown. If you wanted to come back into town and put it back into the same spot. Of course, that's not going to have you seeing it before you get to Lowe's and the surgical center and everything. But
So even with all the new that we're doing there road-wise, you would be able to do this, move it?
that would be okay there. Yes, with the red line shown. Yes.
Usually in one of these 3 locations.
Right.
I like the first one, it just showed up there. I mean, it's not a bad spot to look at that second spot.
if we keep it there, currently doesn't have any lighting or anything on it. I think that's one thing we had a very quick conversation about. Even if we put some of those solar LED lights or something on them, it would help.
When it was presented to the organization I work for, it was told that there would be some solar lighting, because the question was, do we pay for electricity if they run it to it? And they said, no problem with that, it's going to be solar lit. But then, so far, it has not been.
And landscaping would probably help too.
Yeah.
You know, you get a taller landscaping up around it, and surround it, you know, it's just kind of blends in right now.
So I think that would help. Now keep in mind, and this isn't something that we really talked about, but I think the quote that he gave us for the modifications were based on the fact that he was not going to have to rebuild the foundation of the existing ones. So moving some of these that are, especially this one in particular, because this one's already in place, would mean we would have to rebuild the foundation for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel with lighting and just being larger, first spot, this works, and the cement start turn over.
I don't have heartburn over it, but I would like to know how effective the solar lighting is versus running a wire down this pole and having actual lighting.
Yeah, this would be preferred.
Yeah.
Solar wouldn't be too far.
Because, I mean, if we're going to put this money in the sign, it's going to show up best at night.
Yeah.
So if we had it lit.
How could we get power there? Would it have to come from the organization whose land this is on, or can it come?
I don't see why Joe Wheeler couldn't put us a meter on that pole right there and run it to that.
I would think it could be.
As we would have to get permission from underground Baptist to bury a cable, I'm sure.
The lease may cover that. I didn't look back and see what the verbiage is exactly on utilities and what have you. But they could probably run it down the right of way underground or the line go in there.
Is that a significant expense, though?
I wouldn't think terrible. I would look over my shoulder to Ben. He might have a better guess than me on that.
I would think so. You know, you have your monthly base charge of that meter to consider.
I'm thinking more about the initial cost to run the line and all that.
We'd have to speak to them and make sure they got the phase that we would need right there, but I don't see it being an issue. I don't think it'd be very expensive.
What's very expensive, $50 or $50,000?
Somewhere in between.
Yeah.
25.
It would be less than 10,000?
I was thinking
Oh, yeah.
$3
grand,
$3,000.
Yeah.
Unless conduit hasn't come back down since I bought it at $100 a stick. All right. So, action plan. We have some more items to consider, and we have this on our agenda for tonight. But I think I would like to iron out those questions before we move on that, if that's all right.
So what, let me just be clear about the question. First of all, are we in agreement about this? I mean, we have to figure out from how I thought about that one, but would you prefer it going to this new location, or is everyone still concurrent that they like the old sign location in Aldona Cruz?
I personally would rather be on the right, but
Yeah.
You'd rather be on the right or stay?
I like it on the right closer to the road.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Virginia.
Picture number 2
So that's number 2, which means we wouldn't even need Aldona Cruz.
In that scenario, you wouldn't be looking at Aldot. You'd just be placing it to where it doesn't hurt you. So, you know, that's the thing.
I sure would like to ask, you said it was TBA?
TV, I guess.
If we could put it there, and then, I mean,
Sure.
I would be surprised if they let it go in that easement. I think they would consider that a permanent structure.
Do you?
Maybe they let you do it with the understanding if it has to come down, it has to come down if in some type of emergency outage. But I don't think y'all would want to sign up to that with the cost it would take to put in. But we could definitely reach out and ask about that. I just think they would consider it almost like putting a building there, just with the size of the sign and whatnot. So
I think I'm also a little concerned about how that impacts entry into this for future use of this property.
No.
So that would put you back, assuming that that's the case, and they consider it a building, then that would put you back at the
Sorry,
west.
back at the Highway 36 East. This is the largest sign placement. And so it seems like the consensus is to look at doing on the right-hand side of the road on property that's already owned by the city, and whether or not we.
How much isn't that where the fire station is going? Correct.
Fire station's all the way at the north end, so that's not a problem there.
So is there any vision currently?
Commercial.
Any vision for what?
Commercial of some sort, but we're not sure exactly who's going to want to build there yet. So you're likely looking at commercial parking lots or a lot, and you wouldn't want to put it right in the middle. You're going to want to get out of the way, one end or the other. If CBA is an issue, then it would have to go on the western corner over there, where I'm showing that red line.
And that land across the street, that's 3 different owners, I'd assume. It's not city, that's owned by
That
private.
is private owner, just across the road.
All right.
Well, I don't have a good idea.
I don't know if it makes a difference, but we maintain that easement in that area to keep it looking as good in the area as we can during the summer. Just saying,
Who's easement?
the TVA easement
TVA.
there.
The decision is if there's consensus that you would prefer to have it closer to Shoal Road, then we'll need to look at with TVA on that. But if there's more of consensus to keep it over here on the left-hand side of that, then we can move forward with that.
Can we just inquire with TVA and get Aldot's feelings too?
We'll fill all out.
Yeah, Aldot might come back and say, no, it doesn't have to be that far back. Or TVA may say yay or nay or whatever.
Just want to make sure that I don't want to go through the exercise of reaching out to TVA if everyone here still would prefer it being on the left-hand side.
I would not.
Okay.
I'm just taking a straw poll.
Yeah.
We'd rather have it over here on the right near Shoal Road.
I just think it's more natural.
Plug it in, they can see it.
Well, I just want to present as a point of conversation again that if this is sold for commercial development, that is going to be some entry areas that may be impeded. But
What's our setback off the property line if we do it all the way up at the west line?
Parking lots have no setback.
Well, I mean,
The
the
strip.
sign setback.
Oh, no, it can, 5 feet.
Okay, so we're going to be 5 foot into it,
Right.
another 5 foot of sign and landscaping, so 10 foot off the line.
From losing a parking spot ish.
that's where a potential developer would want to put their sign to, something to consider.
Yeah.
They should have got here first.
We gave them a chance.
so the consensus is that the choice would be to put it in the TVA utility line would be what the council wants to pursue first. And then a secondary option would be the one that's drawn here. Third option would be on the left-hand side of the road.
That'd be like the 19th option for me. I would look for something else on the right-hand side if those two didn't work out.
Well, the one that's drawn here is an absolute go. There's no one we even need to check with on that. But the one that's being proposed now would need to be approved by TBA, and that will need to be, the consideration of the property selling needs to be considered also.
And, I mean, they were wide in 36. We're still good.
There's more right of way there. It's not nearly as wide down there at that property as it is out close to it. It just depends on how much widening they want to do. I mean, if you came through it in 4 lanes with a turn lane, I mean, maybe not.
Okay.
I will happily move that welcome sign. If they come and do 4 lanes and a turn lane.
Right.
Yeah, we'll be good with that. All right, so our action items are to get with TBA and inquire about running power to the Morgan Baptist property. Is that it?
And we're holding off, it sounds like, on the downtown.
Well, and then we're not going to move forward with downtown signs.
I'd like to explore some entryways, even if we had to put that on next year's budget. Yeah. I don't know what metal entryways cost, but it'd be really cool. So,
Okay, so we will not be investing in downtown signage currently for that, and for those entryways, do something different.
that's just my thought, and I'm not trying to speak for everybody else. So everybody else may want to sign downtown.
You're talking about sidewalk? Are you talking about sidewalk, or are you talking about over the whole? You're talking
Come out of the whole road.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Welcome to Hartselle.
downtown Waxhaw. That's kind of like the train.
Mm-hmm.
They have the in Waxhaw, North Carolina. They have the, I guess, the bridge you can walk over on 2 sides of the road. So you got a bunch of breweries on one side, ice cream shops, and some shops, and down it goes over the railroad, and then you basically have, and it's a cool photo spot. That's what everybody knows that as, like, that's their image, that's their logo. So it's pretty neat. So I mean, that's neat.
All right. Discussion of draft mobile home ordinance.
Yes. You all have a copy of that already?
We have that over.
Well, I would. I left mine in my vehicle. I got to go get it. I do now.
Okay. A couple months ago, we had some folks want to swap out a single wide mobile home with a double wide mobile home. And our ordinance in Hartselle, mobile homes are considered non-conforming grandfathered structures. They're not allowed by ordinance. They're only allowed if they've been there for a long time, and you cannot further them or extend them. You can't replace them with a larger structure that's also grandfathered or non-conforming, I should say. So there was some dispute as to whether or not replacing a single wide with a double wide constituted an extension. Larry Madison was involved in that process. Went to Board of Zoning Adjustment for discussion there. At one point, folks had requested to actually remove property from the city limits. That came to the previous council. They talked about that. What basically they settled on at that time, and after Larry had researched it through the Attorney General and case law and what have you, was to put a moratorium, a freeze on that prohibition in our ordinance for a time being, which did allow those folks to go ahead with that one, but also we would amend the ordinance on the heels of that to clear up any ambiguity, any question going forward. So this ordinance is intended to do that. And basically what it would do is make replacement of a mobile home not allowed in the city limits. It clarifies it to that degree, the way that it's written currently. So the extension question is moved. If you have an existing mobile home, it's good to stay. If you remove it, you lose your grandfathering. You couldn't bring another one back, single wide, double wide, anything. Now, the way that's phrased can be tweaked if you all want to tweak it. Historically, we've allowed them to replace mobile homes single wide for single wide. That's span risk, call it that way. Within a 12-month period. So we could possibly do something like that. If you wanted to leave the door open, or if you wanted to say 6 months, we could do that. But the way this is currently phrased right now, it would not allow replacement, period. It also goes on to define in very clear detail what an extension is, even in cases when it would be allowed. And I'll talk a little bit about the exceptions. Exceptions would be accidental fire, natural disaster, tornado, that type of thing. In that case, you would have a year from the time of that event to replace the mobile home, but you could not extend it, and that extension is covered in there. Otherwise, very clearly prohibited. If it's deemed unsafe for some reason, by a fire chief, building inspector, by Morgan County Health Department, you would lose the grandfathering. You would have 6 months of notice to rectify the problems, at which point it would not be replaceable. At that point, you let it go longer than that. Also, disconnection from utilities. If you have utilities pulled from it, electrical meter taken off of it, service removed, 6 months is all you would get. It would not be replaceable at that point. So that's the gist of it. And I'll be glad to answer any questions we can discuss.
Do you feel this is pretty standard?
I'm sorry?
Do you feel this is pretty standard?
The cities handle it differently. Generally speaking, yes, it is pretty standard. Non-conformity is meant to be gotten rid of over time. And if you allow them to replace, there you never get rid of the non-conformity. You just keep reviewing it. So, but it is certainly more stringent than what we've.
And do you have a ballpark on how many?
I'm not sure how many we got. I would think no more than 20 ballpark. It's not a drastic number. Right. This wouldn't apply to the couple mobile home parks that we have out there, by the way. That would be exempted. Those are grandfathered in their own right, and they could continue to swap them out in there. And this would not be for action tonight. This has to run as a zoning ordinance in the paper a couple times, and then come to you for a public hearing. So we'd be looking at sometime late January for final action. If you want to see any changes prior to publication, now would be the time for me to make them.
How difficult will it be to remove them once the power is on the hooks for 6 months?
Well, we wouldn't allow them to hook the power back up.
Right.
So at that point, it would be a nuisance type matter. So it would go through the
Same like a house trying to get it torn down.
You're right.
Any other questions?
Question?
All right. Discussion of signage regulations.
You all good with me publishing that one, just to be clear, run it as shown?
Is that going to be on the council agenda?
I'll have it on my calendar. It's probably going to be the second meeting in January.
We'll have to run it, and then it'll be on there for introduction.
Yeah.
Okay, and so make sure we're not to this tonight.
No.
But if you want big changes, you need to wait till before it's published.
Yeah, those costs can get up there. If we have to run it and then we start over, it's expensive.
Is everyone comfortable enough for him to publish this, or do you need time to think about it and do more research on it?
Publish them mine.
I don't have any issues with it.
Okay.
As long as it says accidental fire.
Accidental fire. It does. Yeah. We'll look to the chief back there and tell us for sure.
Well, I can tell you that one way or the other is just it could be intentional, but no proof who did it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I can prove it was arson, just who did it. So there's your gray area.
Right. Yeah.
What if they had to convict anybody?
Probably. I'm just pointing that out.
But hey, that does beg the question: what if somebody comes and burns this person's house because they don't like them?
Or they want mobile homes out. I mean, if somebody wants a mobile home out of the city, they just say, I mean, not that it's going to happen, but just.
I'm glad to brainstorm with Larry on that. If he's got some legalese that he can add in there to cover that, it's a situation that could arise. I mean, that's possible.
I'm good with it as written. I'd be in favor of a little more stringency, but that could ruffle some feathers. So. All right. Anybody? All right. Sign regulations.
All right, sign ordinance is something that we can get into as deeply or as lightly as you'd like to tonight. There are several potential revisions that I would like to discuss with you at some point. I've got a list of potential tweaks that I'm going to pass down, and I guess we just get into it and see how far we get, and then go from there.
I feel like this is something that we
annual at least.
Serially.
Yeah, it's at least
serially talk about.
Yeah.
Is that a word? And I just have a question. Do we talk about it because they're trying to skirt the ordinance, or are we just trying to sit on top of it?
Trying to sit on top, well, both. There are things that come up that not necessarily skirting, but just things that we haven't thought of before that arise. But also we'll notice things in there that the way they're written don't quite work the way that we intended.
Yeah.
And there are also case laws that change what we can and can't do. I guess I'll go ahead and say that first before we go too deep into it. A few years ago, we had to do a major overhaul of the sign ordinance, top down. And the reason we had to do that was because of content-based regulation. Courts have ruled over the years that you cannot regulate signage based on the content of the signs, and they're pretty broad in the way that they define content-based. Content-based could be something as simple as saying on-premise or off-premise, which is something we used to use in the ordinance from cover to cover. You couldn't do off-premise permanent signs. That's a billboard. Courts have said you can't do that anymore. That's content control. So now all that's gone, and we just, a sign is a sign, basically. We have permanent signs, we have temporary signs, and they're restricted by zone. So you can have permanent signs in commercial zones based on the size of your building. You can have temporary signs in commercial zones of a certain size, temporary signs in residential zones of a certain size. So the most pressing matter and the only item that's on the agenda tonight is the potential moratorium on the maximum count of temporary signs. And the reason that we're asking you to look at that and talking with Larry about it, we've got some cases with political signs where folks are putting up multiple 6, 7, 8 signs on the same property for political candidates. Sign's a sign, a sign. We can't control content. Technically, that's illegal in our ordinance. But what if somebody wants to do one sign each for numerous political candidates or ideas? There's no exception for that in our ordinance. So Larry's done some research. There has been some case law over the past couple of years since the last sweeping change we did that allows us some common sense room there to make some exceptions, possibly put in there one per candidate, something like that, in the case of a political campaign or referendum, that type of thing. So right now where we're at, though, is we can't point somebody to that in the ordinance and say, well, they can have it, but you can't. A business that has half a dozen buy one, get one free signs would be told no. We'd have to tell the political candidate signs the same thing. So pending amendment, what you would do tonight would just put a hold on that portion only of the sign ordinance. There wouldn't be any regulation currently on quantity, we would still enforce maximum sizing, placement out of the right of way, all that kind of thing would still be enforced. We just wouldn't be looking at the count until we can get that ironed out.
I'm going to get 9,000 spade digger signs.
Yeah. Now would be the time to do it. So that's the only part that's on the agenda tonight. That resolution would just serve that purpose. Now the deeper dive, if you will, I think I've got time to at least start down that road. The little summary that I gave you is not a codified ordinance or an Indian ordinance. It's just a summary of the sections in the Indian ordinance that I'll give you, or we'll talk about and start to publish as we get deeper into it. But Section 1 of that ordinance would amend the prohibited sign section to clearly allow some exceptions to right-of-way placement. We've run into cases where strict compliance with that is a little much, because you have people's yards where the right-of-way goes, 10, 15 feet up into the area that they manicure or they take care of. They don't really know where the right-of-way is. Yeah. So this would add an exception to the right-of-way rules, allowing for placement in the right-of-way in the residential or ag zones, not in commercial, as long as they're behind the sidewalk, behind the overhead power lines, or behind a drainage ditch or structure, as long as they're at least 20 feet from any street sign, traffic signal. That's getting them away from the intersections. And when no other standard applies, they have to be at least 5 feet from the back of the curb. So not overhanging into the street. Section 2 under the definitions would add a definition for a mural sign. Currently, there's nothing really in there that addresses that, and that's something that comes up more and more often. Painted signs, we even have them now that are basically a screen print type contraption that does it, so it's not quite as hard to do as it once was, or as costly. And people do all kind of artistic designs. Right now, we have to kind of consider the text as signage. And if you have multiple areas of text, you've got multiple signs. And that doesn't always really work from an enforcement standpoint, the way that our sizing or count limits are set up in the ordinance. So this would basically define a mural as an artistic design painted directly on the wall that has no more than 25% of its total area occupied by text or logos. So if you're into that percentage, you're basically exempt, and it wouldn't be considered signage by the ordinance. If you're going over that, then we would apply the size standards, and it would count as a sign just like any other.
So, if somebody painted an old Coca-Cola mural, that wouldn't be allowed by your definition of mural?
It would not if it was the whole thing. Right. If you had an artistic design of some sort that had a Coca-Cola logo in it and it didn't occupy a large percentage, then it wouldn't be. But the old school Coke sign, as this is drafted, wouldn't be allowed. Now, we can change that to say that if it's painted, it's exempt, period. That's the way we do window signs. Signs that are in windows aren't regulated currently. Just keep in mind that does, of course, open the door to a workaround. You can paint a sign that's the whole wall of the building.
Other murals, is that just downtown? They have to go through a different approval process?
Downtown, they have to go through the design review board. Yeah.
Well, there's an old Strickland Drugs or whatever it is, and I would love to be repainted, but if we pass that.
Yeah, that one's it's grandfathered from long ago. Current ordinance would not allow that. It would be considered an oversized sign. All right, sections 3 and 4 would address some definitions related to vehicle signs and trailer signs, basically breaking them into two different terms. And under both of those definitions, we would add exceptions for magnets, paint, wraps, similar signage that appears to be one with the vehicle's finish. That's just an area where it's always been based on administrative interpretation as to what a vehicle sign is. We've never really given anybody a hard time about a wrap. Under the strictest interpretation of the ordinance, you could call a bumper sticker a vehicle sign. It's just, it doesn't break it out. So this would add some exceptions to that type of thing. We'll get over here in another section. It gets into a little bit of the vehicle sign regs, but basically that's all that those sections would be doing is breaking out the definition into two.
So, say someone hypothetically had a van truck and they put a huge magnet sign on the side of it. These new definitions would say that's okay.
There are some regs down here further on section 5 and 6.
Okay.
Yeah. If it's a wrap on the truck, it would be okay, because that's basically one with the surface. If it's a draped sign like a banner or something like that, 5 and 6 would come into play and regulate whether or not you can have it or not. Basically, if it's a vehicle sign, it would the total's 32 square feet or less, which is basically a plywood size sheet attached to the structure if it's in the bed of a truck or something like that.
Right now, I'm glad I'm not a sign producer.
What's that?
I'm glad I'm not a sign producer. I don't have a sign job.
Right. But if you had anything more than that,
I could put it in.
yeah, if you had anything more than that on the vehicle, then it would be prohibited. So you could have something very small on the bed of a truck or reasonably sized on the side of a box truck, but not anything totally larger than 32 on the vehicle. Also, couldn't be LED, electronic. There are signs that are, digital billboards basically that are attached to box trucks and attached to trailers and things like that. You wouldn't be able to do that. Any questions on that one?
What about the giant sign riding around the back of the pickup truck during political season?
32 square feet would be the applicable standard.
Okay, then it can be done.
Yes. Section 7 would just add some language about electronic signage in residential zones, basically like development signs at entrances to subdivisions and things like that. And for temporary signage, it clarifies that those are not temporary, considered temporary signs. Section 8 and 9, under the list of permit exempt signs, would add those trailer and vehicle signs, so you don't have to buy a permit to do that.
Here.
Yes.
Not that I ever put it at my house, but people do the Christmas lights, who go all out. Christmas lights that spray words on there. You can do custom ones now, or it's like, Happy Holidays from the Swaffers, or Chuck Loves Christmas, whatever it says, or whatever it says on your house.
Right.
That's considered an illuminated sign on your house.
Right.
So with that, and of course those are massive. So just to
Yeah, it's a good thought. I'm going to go back and look. I'm fairly certain we amended already in a previous version of this thing to exempt lawn decor, and that may need to be expanded a little bit to cover that, but I'll take a look at that.
So how would you were talking about earlier about digital signs on trailers or vans or whatever, how would you regulate?
Well, basically, we see code officer, we're going to tell them they can't do that. Yeah.
For instance, I've seen an AT&T truck that had a digital. I've never seen it before.
Right.
I was like,
That's
wow.
the kind of thing that brings these points up, because we'll see things like that, like, well, we don't have that covered, but we want to be able to have box trucks riding around through neighborhoods with an LED sign on the side of it.
It's striking for sure.
Yeah, moving target, but that's a new thing. Relatively new for this area anyway. Section 10 gets into some sizing on and count on the residential zones. Temporary, it would change temporary sign count permitted from 1 per property to 1 per public street frontage. So basically that would allow them that too if they're on a corner lot. It would increase the maximum size from 6 square feet to 8 square feet on face area, 4 feet in height to 6 feet in total height. Mainly because we're seeing larger real estate signs, these larger post structures, and not really a problem, but it is technically not in conformance with our ordinance currently. As drafted here, this would also change the agricultural zone maximum to the same as the commercial, which this is for temporary signs now, not permanent, which is the 32 square foot plywood size sheet size instead of the 6 square foot yard sign. So if you're in an ag zone, you would have that additional leniency.
All right, we got about 9 minutes.
That's really that's the bulk of it right now. But we've gotten deeper than I thought we'd have time to actually. One other thing I'll mention, Mr. Schwaber, you mentioned the border lighting around windows, like in gas stations. Some businesses are doing that now. We do have a section in this larger ordinance where we can add that. That's something that you all want to do. That's an easy add. Basically, just say that you can't have LED lines that lights that border windows or doors, that kind of thing.
All right, so we'll take a break and we'll have our regular scheduled meeting.
Let me ask you just before we do that, do you want me to start any publication on this thing yet, or do you want me to hold off and let's talk about it again in another?
I would hold off on that one personally. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all.
Not really, but we'll go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, talk about it during the regular meeting.
Yeah, it's just an introduction tonight.
Ben, this is just a